रेडियो हांजी 1674 ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਲਿਸਨਰਸ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਮੈਂ ਅਮਰਿੰਦਰ ਗਿੱਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਖਿਦਮਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹਾਂ। ਵਿਕਟੋਰੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਦਾ ਬਿਗਲ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਵੱਧ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊਜ਼ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਰੂਬਰੂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੀਡਰ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਆਪੋਜੀਸ਼ਨ ਮੈਥਿਊ ਗਾਏ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਫੋਕਸ ਹੈ ਰੀਬਿਲਡ ਐਂਡ ਰਿਕਵਰ। ਕੀ ਰਹੇਗਾ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਆਪੋਜੀਸ਼ਨ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੀ ਕੀ ਅਪਰੋਚ ਰਹੇਗੀ ਇਸ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ? ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਫਾਈਨੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਹਾਰਡਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੀਆਂ ਟਰਮਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੁਣੀਆਂ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਕਵਰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਉਹ ਜਾਣਨਾ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੇ। ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਸ਼ੋ ਮੈਥਿਊ।
Thank you. Thanks for having me very, very much.
We start with the last election. You were the leader of the opposition. What went wrong during the last campaign?
Look, the circumstances in 2018 to 2022 are very, very different. Last election was heavily focused around infrastructure, law and order. Those issues are not what's on people's minds today. I think Victorians are focused on fixing the crisis in our health system. They're focused on keeping their kids at school, the mental health crisis around ourselves, our children, and also making sure that our businesses and small business can go ahead and can thrive. There's a lot of work to do to get confidence back in our state, and I want to make sure that we do that.
So in terms of a recover and rebuild, how are you going to fix it? What are the key points you want to pitch to the people?
We're going to fix the crisis in our health service, number one. We know when Victorians call for an ambulance, it needs to turn up. When an ambulance gets to a hospital, there needs to be a bed. At the moment, the ambulance system is broken because of under-resourcing by the government. If it does take you to a hospital, it drops you off in a tent, which is completely substandard. If you've managed to get a bed, there are many instances where people are sent home early because there aren't the resources there. And the government has now had 8 years to get this right, and they haven't. I'm going to redirect $35 billion from the government's Cheltenham to Box Hill Railway Tunnel, and I'm going to put every cent of that into the healthcare system to fix the problem once and for all. It's going to take a lot of money, but to me, this is the biggest issue, our health, for our parents, for our children, for ourselves, for our neighbours. It's the biggest issue is to get right, and I intend to do that.
In terms of the rail project and you're funding that one to the health side, which is really good approach, but in the last election we heard a party called Transport Party and everyone was talking with the bottleneck of the Melbourne CBD. But do you think that's also important? How are we going to fix that?
Look, I think the biggest priority is keeping ourselves healthy and saving lives. And we must save lives. Saving Victorians' lives is my key priority. Transport projects are good. They are a nice to have. Keeping us fit and healthy, that is a must have. So my absolute priority is people's health and saving lives. That's why I want to fix the healthcare system, the ambulance crisis as my priority. After that, we then focus on, as a government, the infrastructure projects that are needed. The East-West link, for instance, which is very important. Fixing bottlenecks on our rail network, which is important. Those things are important. But a railway tunnel from Cheltenham to Box Hill, where it just goes to those two locations, I mean, that doesn't help anyone in the city of Casey, the city of Wyndham, the city of Manningham, the city of Whittlesea, anyone in country regional Victoria. But fixing our health system does.
In the last election, in terms of the Indian Australian diaspora, we heard a lot of good positive announcements from the Liberals. What do you think in return back? Have you got enough support?
Look, Indian Australians are now one of the most influential group of Australians in this country, and I actually want more to come to Australia. Now, what we are lacking in Victoria today is the migration levels that we've had in the past. Foreign visitors, foreign tourists, foreign residents, foreign workers. We need to get them back. We need, as a state government, to provide incentives for people to come back. In my view, that should be particularly health professionals or people in agriculture, people in manufacturing. That is saying, if you come to Victoria, we want you to bring your family, your parents. We want them to come over to be able to migrate here easier. And I want to make it, and my government will make it easier for people to bring their family and their parents over, because we want those skills in Victoria, but we need to give them an incentive, and that is if you come bring your family, and that's what I want to do.
In terms of the migration number, we recently heard about the federal quota. Victoria is number 2 after New South Wales. But do you think that's enough in terms of the small businesses? Every business is actually struggling to fill the gap
it is.
between the employees.
It is.
So do you think that's enough or we need more?
We need more. We need a lot more. Those foreign workers and foreign migrants, and migrants and foreign workers are, excuse me, the most important to get back. We need them back soon, and we must be proactive as a state to go and ask people, advertise to people, go and tell people why a life in Victoria is good, why we want them to come back. Melbourne is losing 60,000 people a year. That's unsustainable.
Indeed, yes.
And we need to make up that gap through overseas migration. That's why if we are asking people to come from overseas, we should provide an incentive, and the Victorian government should say, we want you to bring your parents, we want you to bring your family, and that gives people a reason and an incentive to say, okay, I don't have to go by myself, I can bring mum and dad, I can bring my family, and Victoria is the place to go to.
Yeah. So in terms of the Indian diaspora, especially the census results are so positive. The numbers are appealing so much to the political parties and also to the businesses. What we have this time, because last time you matched each and every announcement made by Labour Party, more than 35 million in total when we calculate the whole investment. What do we have this term, like any special announcement?
There'll be quite a few coming, quite a few coming. Okay. Look, there are some previous things that have happened, like the support for the Indian Community Centre out in the eastern suburbs. There needs to be something similar in the western suburbs. Temple support, community support, all that is very, very important. But particularly the Indian community, we're talking about people who are out here because they're business people. They work hard. They come out for their family, their faith, their community.
Second biggest taxpayers.
They work very hard, and so my view is the government should be also there to provide tax incentives and taxation relief, which I've already announced for some sections of the small business sector. Because when you've got such a community that is focused on small business like Indian Australians are, we've got to reward them and we want them to be a part of our economy, and that's why tax incentives are important. At the moment in Victoria, we're the highest taxing state in Australia. And when the government borrows and borrows more money, as the Labor government's doing, that means that you can't reduce taxes. So we believe in running projects according to budget, not going over budget. And then that gives us the incentive to lower taxes for everyone, particularly small business.
So in terms of the support which Indian community delivered during the bushfires, during the COVID, like the temples, of course, like you guys gave us support as well. Your party members were there too in terms of volunteers. Do you want to say appreciation words?
Oh, look, I think on every Victorian is so appreciative, and every Australian up the eastern seaboard after the bushfires as well. This shows how the Indian community is not, it's not a little community. This is Australians. They're Australians who have come from India. They're Australians, and they want to give back to their country. And it says everything, I mean, from the Sikh temples, the Hindu temples and others that I saw, the work, the participation. I mean, that is Australians giving back to this country. I mean, what more a wonderful reason to have people with that mindset, more people like that come to this country to make it their country too, their family, their friends, to come out here and make it their country too. I think all of us were touched, particularly during COVID. In some of the most difficult times, there was still Indian community buses running around food to people, risking themselves. But they did it, and I think everyone is so deeply appreciative and so grateful. You know, I thank the Indian communities in my own electorate who did this, and they did a lot of work, and we think it. I mean, that to me says everything about a community who just wants to put back to this country, and more of them, I say.
Considering the fact, Matthew, like, you know, we understand we've done a lot. The numbers are so appealing. But we are still struggling to get the proper political representation. None of the political party is offering us a safe seat. Anything on your cards?
Well, I've got I've got in a two marginal seats. I've got Indian candidates, a Sri Lankan in a safe seat. So there's a few, another one in a marginal seat out west. So, excuse me, we've got a few seats to win. So hopefully after the election, those marginal Labor seats will be safe Liberal seats. Jagdeep Singh's campaign down in Cranbourne is fantastic. He's got hundreds of volunteers, and Manju in the upper house, Anne-Marie Hermans, her parents are from Sri Lanka. Preet Singh out in the western suburbs again. So we've got to try to put our best foot forward, and I think we can.
What's really a touching moment you experienced with the Indian community so far during your last 8 years tenure?
I think eating with everyone in a temple on the floor and just part of that crowd is the most wonderful thing you can do when you go and visit the Indian community. When you go to a temple and you sit down and you're just one face in that crowd and you either serve food and then you sit down and eat with everyone. It's a peaceful, levelling experience, and I tell my MPs everyone should do it. It is just, I did it at the Sikh temple in New Delhi, and I would say to you, I've done it plenty of times out here. Everyone should do it.
We heard a lot about the financial hardship, but government is putting the money in the people's account. Do you think as a opposition party you got a disadvantage from those grants?
No, I think Australians, and particularly in Victoria, see that for what it is. It's just, government offer you a scheme here and there, but people are focused on their future, not day to day. All Australians, probably particularly Indian Australians, are focused on keeping their kids at school, getting their kids the best education, keeping their parents safe, knowing that if there's a health problem with their parents, they can get them a bed and they can get them seen in first world, first quality healthcare system. So I think, Indian Australians, like all Australians, want to make sure that we've got good, we're here for a reason. We want to make this the best country in the world, and they shouldn't accept second best. None of us should.
All right. And after the last election, when we had another leader for Liberal Party, I had a question along with, in your office, back in, I think, Western Suburbs. I asked you the question, will you challenge the leadership? And he said, not this time. What's changed?
Look, Victoria needs a change.
All right.
Victoria needs the change, not the Liberal Party. Victoria needs the change.
Right.
In November we got the chance to do it, and I hope that all Victorians, Indian Victorians, all Victorians, be a part of that change, because it's coming.
Yeah. So once you will win the election, you will become a premier. What if you lose? What's the plan?
Ask me that the day after the election. You come and see me then.
All right. So in terms of the Indian community, the migration number, as you say, is not enough. The international students. It's basically a framework, a kind of which suits everyone in Australian employment sector.
Yes, it does.
The numbers are not coming in. The families of the settled migrants here, they're not coming in. They are struggling. They have a newborn babies and stuff like that. We have more than 1 million applications as a backlog. The current government is blaming the previous government. What else they should have done?
Look, for God's sake, they all just need to get on with it. I think everyone's sick of governments in Australia arguing with each other or blaming other governments or whatever. We need more foreign students in this country. It is absolute straightforward. Given the way our two countries' modern political and legal and education systems were structured and founded, they're very similar. And so therefore, Indian Australians, or Indians coming to Australia, are a very good fit into this country. So we should be encouraging, advertising, asking, seeking more to come to Australia and giving them the incentive. If they complete their studies out here, residency and citizenship should be much easier for them. I don't see why this is so time-consuming for federal or state governments. We have this opportunity. The whole world is looking at India. Within 5 years, it'll be the biggest country in the world. Everyone's looking at the Indian century, how to be a part of it. Well, if we hesitate, we won't be a part of it. How about we work now to be a part of what's going to be the Indian century?
During the last federal government, there are some statements from the Prime Minister Scott Morrison, say for example, if you cannot afford, you can go back. Do you think that kind of comments dent a lot to the Australian education and migration?
I hope not, because we really we need that market. As Australia, we desperately need that market. And I mean, you can see in the United Kingdom where there's been huge amounts of Indian migration. They're possibly about to get a Prime Minister of Indian background.
Indeed, yes.
That's
what I asked for the political representation here.
Well, you never know. And so, things are changing, the relationship's changing, our countries are changing, and we can't pause, we can't hesitate, we can't offer barriers. We should be trying, as countries with a very similar political, legal, education system, to have a good relationship with India. And, to me, it is a no-brainer. We must do this. Not maybe, we must do this.
Thank you so much, Matthew.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you very much.
So, Haanji, ਥੈਂਕ ਗਾਇਜ਼ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ ਲੀਡਰ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਆਪੋਜੀਸ਼ਨ ਨੇ ਮਾਈਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੰਬਰਸ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਬੜੇ ਸਟ੍ਰੇਟ ਫਾਰਵਰਡ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਡੈਫੀਨੇਟਲੀ ਨਵੇਂ ਹੋਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਾਈਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਨੇ ਫੈਮਲੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਇਨਸੈਂਟਿਵ ਦੇਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਨੇ ਬਿਜ਼ਨੈਸਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਇਨਸੈਂਟਿਵਸ ਦੇਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਵਾਰ ਇਸ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਜ਼ ਲੀਡਰ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਆਪੋਜੀਸ਼ਨ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੈਂਪੇਨ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਹੋਰ ਵਧੇਰੇ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊਜ਼ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਅਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਮੁੱਦਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਅਮਰਿੰਦਰ ਗਿੱਧਾ ਨੂੰ ਅਤੇ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਤੇ ਪਨੀਟਿੰਗ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਓ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ